Thank you so much. So again, this is Dalal Alharthi. I'll be presenting our research project about social engineering. So this paper is part of a larger project about mitigating the risk of social engineering in organizations. When it comes to cybersecurity, people are always the weakest link in the cybersecurity chain, just because how helpful people can be, not only, of course, in an individual level, also in an organizational level. It takes only one careless employee to give away their credentials to cyber criminals, so they can gain access to everything in the company. They can basically gain unauthorized access to all the company's sensitive data. Here's a real life example. Last month in December 2020, all employees in a huge organization, they received an email with the subject line, "Your employee evaluation has been updated." So since this was the last month of the year, it was December, all employees, they were expecting such email in such time. So they opened that email, and in the content, they were directed to click on a secure portal button and re-enter their credentials, which is username and password, to be able to review their employee evaluation. So employee who clicked on that button, yet they realized that it was a simulation for a phishing attack that we were asked to conduct in that organization to measure employees' awareness level of social engineering attacks. And the result revealed that the majority of employees are not aware of social engineering. So this is actually the main focus of the research, which is social engineering. Social engineering is one element or one type of cyber attacks, which relies mainly on psychologically manipulating and tricking the victims to convince them to click on a link or to download a malicious attachment or to reveal some sensitive information by phone, or what we call it phishing, voice phishing. They can also trick victims by pretending to be someone else, and there is a lot more of social engineering techniques that they can use. Comparing to the other type of cyber attacks, social engineering is way easier and cheaper and faster and more effective way to gain unauthorized access to sensitive information. So this is the focus of the research, is how to defend organizations against social engineering attack. And we mainly focused on answering 4 main questions. The first one, which is about the main defense mechanisms against social engineering. So we investigated the main target points for social engineering and how to defend each target point against this attack. And after that, we designed and distributed a survey to measure employees' awareness level of those defense mechanisms. And we also designed a customizable social engineering InfoSec policies that organizations can adopt to mitigate the risk of social engineering attacks. After that, we investigated the current incorporation level of those policies in organizations. So to answer the first questions, here's our taxonomy. The main categories show the main target points for social engineers, which are people, and in this case, in organizations, employees, data, software and hardware, and network. And the subcategories is how to defend each category. For example, to defend data, we have to have backup and replication policy. We have to have least privilege determination and enforcement, sharing boundaries also between employees in the same department and between employees from different departments, but within the same organization, and between the organization employees and stakeholders or vendors or any third party, and so on. So based on that taxonomy, we designed our experiment or our first questionnaire to measure employees' awareness level of those defense mechanisms. The questionnaire consists of 48 questions, and we correlated the relationship between, or the correlation between the survey questions and the taxonomy to find after that the average for each subcategory, the average of awareness level, and then the average of awareness level of each category. And then we found that 47.5% of employees are aware of social engineering defense mechanisms. After that, so this is the core contribution of that research, which is Social Engineering InfoSec Policies. We came up with this customizable model that consists of security policies that organizations need to incorporate in order to mitigate the risk of social engineering. So when we talk about policies, there are three main things that we need to consider, which is in the first place, creating and incorporating these formal policies. After that, teaching these policies and educating employees about those policies. And after that, we have to also come up with enforcement techniques to enforce the implementation of these policies within the organization systems by translating these written policies into technical steps within the organization system. And this is the most important step. So, for example, the main categories are based on our original taxonomy, which is the main target points, with people, data, hardware and software, and network. And the subcategories here are the policies that needed to be incorporated. And they are also, we explained that in more depth in the paper, but I'd like to just highlight some examples about how can we incorporate and enforce some of these policies. So for example, when it comes to password policy, if the organization have a policy that says all admin users, they have to have a password that consists of at least 15 digits, and they need to change it, let's say, every 3 months, then in the Active Directory, they have to really enforce the implementation of this policy so the system does not accept any password that does not comply with this policy, and really enforce the user to be compliant with that requirement. Also, when it comes to data, so data loss is one of the biggest concerns for each organization. So there are many tools that helps organizations to make sure that there is no data loss. For example, there are some tools that flag incidents in case of any employee share any email with another email that's outside of the organization domain. It also flags some incidents if the employee tried to, let's say, download some confidential or sensitive information from a shared tool, let's say Dropbox or Box. Also, there are some tools to enforce that the data cannot be transferred to a USB device, for example. And there's a lot more of these examples, but these policies need to also be enforced and not only incorporated. Also, when we talk, of course, about software and hardware, let's say, if the employee cannot download or shouldn't download any software on their devices, there should be also policies enforced to prevent them from downloading any software. When it comes to a mobile device or bring your own device, if there is a policy in place about bring your own device, it needs to be enforced. And usually the way we enforce these policies is by requiring the employee to download the single sign-on tool and to have the device or the mobile device password changed to be compliant with our policy also. And the files inside this mobile will be divided into two main sections. One section for the employee personal data that they use for in their mobile, and the other one is for organizations data. And there are two separate sections. So in case this employee move or leave the company for any reason, then we'll be able to erase everything from this device that's related to the company. When it comes also to application security, to be able to implement the term of security shift, or to be able to shift the security from being the last stage of the coding or of the CI/CD workflow, it should be incorporated in early stages. So we make sure that the code is secure, and we remediate any vulnerabilities. Of course, there's no vulnerability-free application, but we should be able to look at security from very early stages in the CI/CD pipeline. And so on for all the policies, including proxy exception, like employees should access only the websites that allow them to do their job. So in case they need any proxy exceptions, also this process should be clear and should be addressed and incorporated and enforced in organizations. So based on this, we also designed our second experiment. We designed a survey to measure the incorporation level of these policies in organization. And we distributed and analyzed the questionnaire. This figure shows how we correlate the questionnaire question with the taxonomy of social engineering InfoSec policies that I just presented. And the research found that 51.18% of formal security policies are incorporated in organizations. We also investigated the first and in the second experiment, public versus private organization in terms of employees' awareness level and in terms of also incorporation of security policies. And we found that private organizations are slightly more aware of social engineering. They implement also more security policies regarding mitigating the risk of social engineering. So to summarize the key contributions of this research, we designed two survey instruments, one to measure employees' awareness level of social engineering, and the other one to measure the incorporation level of security policies. And we developed also a customizable model of social engineering InfoSec policies for organizations. Also, we analyzed the data for the first and the second experiment, and the data set is available as an appendix in our paper also for researchers or practitioners who wants to replicate the work or to extend our work. As a future work, we are looking forward to do more work on the enforcement techniques for security policies. We want to also work more on developing awareness training sessions that organizations can adapt to make sure that their employees are aware of social engineering. And this will be based on the results of the first and the second experiment. And we want to also try to apply some machine learning algorithms and structural occasion modeling. And the reason why we want to also incorporate some machine learning techniques, because we cannot rely on employees' awareness, because when it comes to cybersecurity, people are the weakest link in the cybersecurity chain. Thank you.